Okay, so here's how this video is going to go. I'm gonna show you a clear of World Boss Null with my Tier 3 Thor in his latest uniform. And yeah, spoiler alert, I do clear this, and I want you to see how easy it is for him, how easy it is for my Thor to do this. And I want you to kind of guess what kind of build I have on him. You know, just get a general idea in your head, what kind of Odin's Blessings or Urus you think I have, what kind of Obelisk or CDP you think I'm rocking, what level of ISO 8 set you think I have, etc, etc. I want you to think of those things while I discuss Thor's uniform and while you watch me clear Null. Because, again, Stage 1 Null is a pretty big step to take for any character, right? So I thought it would be fair to showcase this. Now regarding Thor, he's gotten a massive upgrade with this uniform, I will say. And I'm gonna go through the biggest talking points about it. So, in terms of skills, the biggest changes come to his second skill, his fourth skill, his fifth skill, and his tier 3 skill. Now, his second skill is a V-pad movement skill, which you can use to evade attacks. It's an iframe as well, so that's interesting. And it also has a 2-second paralysis that ignores immunity. His fourth skill is a juicy one. It has not only a whopping 60% all attack and 60% all defense buff with 6% speed and 35% crit rate, but it also has accumulation based on damage dealt to opponents. While this is pretty big, the stats on here might be a little misleading, and I'll get to that later on when I discuss how to play Thor. His fifth skill has lightning resist down and a paralysis that doesn't ignore immunity, at the same time having invincibility. Now they did rework his tier 3 skill, and it's now much better than it was before. It now has paralysis and a whopping 70% all defense down. That's pretty huge for Thor, and I think you'll be able to see that in the ways that I showcase his new power level here. Now, granted, you won't be able to see the all defense down take effect against Null, since, of course, Null doesn't get affected by debuffs like those, but I think you'll see that regardless of whether or not the opponent you're facing is immune to debuffs. Thor is still very, very much capable of putting out the damage. This Null showcase is very, very clearly showing this, I think. All of his skills just hit so much harder, and he really feels like the god that he is. I feel like this is the first time that we've gotten a version of Thor in the game that very accurately reflects how strong he is in other mediums like in comics, TV shows, or movies. Well, I guess except that time when his Ragnarok uniform came out and it was bugged so he got insanely high scores in ABX, but I'm pretty sure that the devs didn't mean for that to happen, so I'm not gonna look back at that. Not to say that Thor hasn't had good uniforms in the past, but Thor's never really been the #1 in the meta for anything, I think, apart from that stray ABX time that I mentioned. And it's really great to see Thor so strong right now. And my first impressions of this uniform can basically be summed up by me saying that I'm very happy with what they've decided to do with Thor here. I love how he plays, I love how strong his skills are, I love how hard he hits. It's really just everything that you could have asked for if you're a fan of the character. And as you can see here, we are doing great against Null. Yeah, he has Beta Ray Bill's lead. Yeah, he has Valkyrie with the uniform support. Don't get those things twisted, those are absolutely true. But I have plenty of tier 3 characters in my roster that couldn't do this with those levels of support. I think this is a very impressive reflection of how strong Thor is with this new uniform. Is he #1 for anything? I don't know right now, but I feel like he's very close there. I cannot say for certain because we've gotten so many powerful universal characters in recent times. Even just last month, we've got possibly the strongest character in the game in the form of Sentry. So I don't know where Thor ranks in comparison to all these new universal tier 3s we've gotten. But he is damn strong for sure. And I will say that if you have a tier 3 Thor, if you tier 3'd him in the past like me because you love the character, because you wanted to see the best of this character in game, then this uniform is an absolute must buy. It really transforms Thor into a powerhouse Yeah, it's kind of funny seeing Thor assist Thor. But yeah, as my Thor is about to finish this stage of Null, I hope that you have your preconceived expectations for what my build is for Thor ready, because I'm gonna be going over his stats right now and gonna be possibly showing you how to get the best out of your Thor if you have one. Alright, so let's go over the build. Let's see just how much I've invested into Thor tier 3 with this new uniform and stuff. So, we're operating on a lightning damage 140 proc. Yeah, it's a very simple obelisk and we're getting that much output out of him. I don't know, I'd say I'm pretty impressed. Can you imagine if I had a CTB of Rage or Energy on him? Actually, a Judgment would be great too now that I think about it. We have a stage 9 Power of Angry Hulk. I'm gonna try to bump that up eventually, but this is what we're operating with right now. It could go much higher, of course, with some significant investment. Yeah, we have 3 Odin's Blessings on him. That's probably the most expensive part of the build, but I really wanted to cap out his crit damage, so of course I put those energy attack crit damage Odin's Blessings on him, and this is what it looks like. The crit damage isn't capped yet, but when I get this uniform to Mythic, I'll have the last slot unlocked and I'll probably use that for crit damage. So that's what I plan to do with this build. Otherwise, all the stats are basically capped. Crit rate is soft capped already because he has that skill that increases his crit rate, of course. And we have a heroic uniform. When we get the uniform to Mythic, we will have 3 out of the 5 uniforms unlocked. So we have this Dr. Octopus uniform that gives us energy attack, and we have the Hawkeye uniform that gives us attack speed. And both of those are helpful enough when trying to get the best out of Thor. But an interesting thing to discuss will be how his 4th skill works. The 4th skill is really interesting because depending on how long you hold the skill, you get a different series of buffs. So when you tap the skill, just like I did here, you get a 30% all attack, all defense buff with 30% crit rate. Now if you hold it for a little bit longer, just like I'm doing right now, you'll see that the buff increases to 50% all attack and all defense, while the crit rate stays the same. So this is the second variation of the buff. Now the third variation, when you hold it the longest, when you get the heal also, this is when you get the full buff that is listed on the skill. And why I said that the 4th skill text might be a little misleading, because when looking at the text, you wouldn't know that you'd have to hold this skill for the entirety of its duration in order to get those stats out of it. I think that knowing how Thor's 4th skill works is the key to getting the best out of him, because the difference between 30% all attack and 60% all attack is huge. And I think I have some idea of how to get the best out of Thor. Now, know that I'm working with a normal proc, but this is how I'm making him work for me, and I'm gonna showcase it against stage 99 of Ebony Maw. What better place to take an elemental damage dealing character? So in order to make things work, important things you need to note about Thor's kit is that the 4th skill, as great as it is on a 24-second cooldown, which means at max skill cooldown, you'll be able to press that 4th skill every 12 seconds roughly. Another thing you have to know is that the 5th skill is basically cancelable at any point. And the other thing you need to know is that Thor doesn't have his own super armor or guard break immunity. So knowing these things, I've devised a sort of skill rotation that I follow in order to make the most out of my Thor's 4th skill. This means basically having 2 types of skill rotations, one where I can use the 4th skill and the other where I can't. Given that since my proc comes up every 7 seconds and the cooldown of the 4th skill is on 12 seconds, I won't be able to use it every rotation. So on my first rotation, I'm gonna use my 5th skill and cancel into the 4th skill, charge it all the way up to the max amount. The 5th skill canceling into the 4th skill is really important because the invincibility the 5th skill gives him will prevent Thor from getting guard broken while he charges up that 4th skill. That's kind of the key to making the whole rotation work. This basically results in me proccing on 4, but having the residual damage of 5 to buff me up as well. Then when the next rotation comes around, I'll use my 5th skill, cancel into the 3rd skill, and move into the 2nd skill. Now sometimes this doesn't work, sometimes you can already tell that you're gonna activate the proc before you make it to the 2nd skill, so sometimes you can rest on the 3rd skill, or if you need protection, you can remove the 3rd skill entirely and just go into the 2nd skill since it's an iframe. When the tier 3 is activated, I like to do 5 cancel into 6 because the tier 3 skill does so much damage, as you'll see in the Ebony gameplay that I have. and even more so against world bosses like Ebony, since the all defense down can be applied to them. Now yeah, the skill rotation won't necessarily be followed 100% of the time. Lord knows I haven't followed it in this gameplay footage that I'm showing you, but it gives you some idea of how you want to be using Thor and taking advantage of his kit. And we can see him here absolutely obliterating stage 99 of Ebony. Goodness me. I know for a fact that Thor was never able to do a stage this high for me in the past. And of course, you can thank the 70% all defense down for it. But now that he's able to clear stage 99 by himself, basically no problem, with a lightning damage 140 proc, this kind of just signifies how insane this upgrade is for Thor and why this uni is amazing. The fact that I'm so happy with Thor's output with a lightning damage 140 proc really makes me wonder where his ceiling lies. What are the things he could do with the CTP? It really makes me wonder. And it makes me so happy to say that Thor is finally mighty in game. The Marvel Future Fight devs really knocked it out of the park for this one, in my opinion. This is an amazing rework to a character that absolutely deserved it based on his power level in comics and movies, etc. They've finally given a fan favorite Avenger of ours the power that he deserves in-game, and I am here for it. I'm absolutely here for it. So yeah, in case you weren't able to tell, I highly recommend this uniform. And I'm sure that if you have it, you feel the same way also. If you were on the fence about it, don't worry, just pick it up. You will not be disappointed. I promise you that. So those are my first impressions of the Thor uniform after having played with him against World Boss and stuff. I have yet to play with him in ABX. I'll try that eventually, though I'm not sure I'll do it on video because I'm not the best at ABX. I hope that this character showcase was informative to you, that you were able to take something away from it. Maybe your doubts about the uniform were alleviated, or maybe you just wanted to see what the Thor could do with a normal proc. I'm not sure when the next video will be because after having built Thor and after having transcended Valkyrie, I'm very, very low on gold. Either way, I hope you were able to take something away from this video, and as always, thank you so much for watching.